I used to work as a commercial diver many years ago now. I've seen stories floating around. Stories about people seeing things that they cannot explain that are living underneath our oceans. I wanted to post here just to get it off of my chest, really. Maybe someone will actually take this seriously for once. Everyone else I have ever told has just laughed in my face. Family members, friends, people I worked with. This experience actually made me never go near the ocean ever again. I'm not kidding. Commercial diving, if you're unfamiliar, it's not really like how you would picture it. I'm not floating around in scuba gear with a snorkel on. My job is essentially heavy construction work that is done in the pitch black underneath the ocean. You have to saturation dive, you have to go down in a bell. The diving suit that you wear is so heavy, and you have to train for a long time to get used to it, to get used to maneuvering and using the tools that you need to do underwater. The tools are obviously specifically designed for the buoyancy. It's not like you're taking a spanner underwater, but still, it's a really big adjustment from just simply diving down, which I also did for many years, even before this job. It all started as just a hobby for me. It's scary and isolating. In every single second, the ocean is actively trying to crush your body into bits. The helmet that I wear is insanely heavy. It is this rigid brass and fiberglass thing that just completely locks around my head. Then I've got the thick rubber diving suit, and then I'm connected to the surface ship by an umbilical cable. That is via the diving bell, obviously. The umbilical cable connects to the diving bell, which then connects to the DSV. An umbilical cable is just what we call it. Just think of a big thick bundle of cable or hose all tied together. That's kind of what it's like. It's usually bright colors too, to make it easy to find in low visibility. It's my lifeline. Without it, I would be screwed. It supplies the main breathing air supply and does a whole host of other things. If that gets cut, then it is over. You go down with a small emergency bailout cylinder of air, but depending on the depth and the situation that you find yourself in, it might not be enough to surface safely in time. And believe me, you don't want to emergency ascend too quickly, because nothing good can ever come of that. Sorry, I didn't mean to vomit explanations everywhere. I will try to be concise from here on, and only explain if something is uncommon or doesn't immediately make sense. So, I was out on a repair job in the open ocean. Some pipeline had suffered some massive damage, and there were cracks forming all across it. Just tiny ones to begin with, but it needed to be fixed before catastrophic failure. I had to go down and patch it all up, and that is the best way that I can sum it up without going into technical details. I'm going to skip the preparations, the safety checks, the briefings, the hours of planning, etc. Just know that it's not as simple as suiting up and just diving in. I tested comms before I went, and they were crystal, and so I descended, which went just as usual. As soon as you get beyond 50 meters, the light just drops out, and you are in complete blackness. It's terrifying. I had a headlamp with me, a heavy halogen one, but it still does not fix everything. It only reaches a few feet, and then it's just blackness again. A little bit of light saving you, and then just another wall of blackness. Around 200 meters is about how far I had to descend for this job. At this depth, the pressure is absolute. You need specialized gas mixtures, lots of training, and you have to live in a sat chamber for days at a time, depending on the job. It's a lot of explaining, so I will leave that out too, but just know that it's probably one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. All it takes is one slight variable, and you are dead, with nothing that you can really do. You can't really prepare for everything. I found the damaged section of the pipe. It was half buried in silt and covered in a thin layer of growth. I already had my tools sent down before me, and so I got to work. Underwater welding is intense and difficult. Every time you strike, you get flashbanged by a massive bit of greenish light. You have to focus at all times. I went on like this for an hour, possibly 2 hours. You really lose track of time down there. You kind of lose all of your senses by a point, if I'm honest. It's like being in one massive deprivation chamber. It's easy to just zone out and feel like you're not inside your body anymore, like you're just an observer. It did not take long before I started to realize that there was something insanely wrong. My air mixture, it tasted like copper. That's what I was breathing in, that's what it tasted like. The thick, metallic taste was unmistakable, and it was making it really difficult to breathe actually. I used my comms to communicate with the people watching over my gauges, and they said that they were all fine. Nothing was wrong with my mixture. They were concerned that I might be dizzy, or suffering from nitrogen narcosis or something of the like. It can happen. It makes you see things. It can make you feel like you are in a daze, like you're high on something. But this wasn't the case. I was perfectly fine, and I did some basic exercises, like lifting my hands, moving my fingers, blah blah blah. But everything was fine, and they were happy for me to continue. I went to go back to doing my job. I could still taste that coppery taste, and as I raised up my tool, I noticed that I couldn't raise my arm any further up. I managed to bring it up to about my waist, and it was like my entire arm had just become too heavy to lift all of a sudden, which is impossible. It just felt really, really heavy. I could feel the sharp, stinging pain in my arm. Not just a stinging. I could feel a burning pain that started at my elbow, and it was all the way up to my jaw after a point. I could move my jaw ever so slightly, but it was making a cracking sound inside my ears every time I moved it, and I could not speak. I couldn't form the words. I tried. My jaw was burning, but it also really, really ached when I tried to talk. There was something very, very wrong, and I was beginning to panic. I caught sight of something in the dark. It was just at the edge of my headlamp, so for quite a while, I could only see vague shapes and shadows. But closer to me, I noticed something else. I noticed that I was actually bleeding. I whipped my head around, trying to figure out the cause. My diving suit. There was a hole inside of it, near the bicep. It wasn't nasty, but it was enough for a little bit of blood to come out. It looked as if something jagged or barbed had been scraped across my bicep and taken off the material and the little bit of skin. I still could not form any words. I don't know why people topside were not checking up on me and asking if things were all good. Time seemed to slow down completely in that moment. And then eventually, I started to see the thing. Just a little, bit by bit, as it started to come out of the shadows. It looked like some type of a jellyfish, but it couldn't possibly be. It was way, way too big. It looked just massive. It looked longer than me, and I'm around 5'11". It did not look like any regular jellyfish. There was some kind of a faint light that seemed to be pulsing out from it, from inside its body. It looked dark, like a red sort of color. It was just massive and floating, and had all of these tentacles that stretched longer than I could even see. It was just a huge mass. It's like I could see about halfway, and then the tentacles just descended into darkness, and I couldn't see them anymore. The tentacles were thick, and I couldn't be sure, but it looked like there was something on them, sticking out from them. And this is where I remember things getting so much worse. My breathing mixture, that copper taste, it was becoming stronger, if that's even possible. And I was starting to become really lightheaded. I felt like I was in a state of bliss. My entire body was completely numb. I could not even blink my eyes manually at this point. Whatever I tried to do, my body would not respond. I was fixed to the spot and forced to just stare at this thing move closer and closer to me. I saw it extend its tentacles. They moved so much quicker than I could even comprehend. They ended up curling around the umbilical cable, and all I could feel was a deep sense of dread inside my stomach. That was it, right there. I thought that was the end. I thought that was the moment that I was going to die. I could feel a slight pressure on the back of my head, a tug, and then it stopped. I was trying my best to get the words out. I was trying to say, "Pull me up right now," but it sounded like I was trying to speak without using my tongue. I don't even remember if I heard a response. I don't think I did. My vision was getting blurrier by now. I felt like I was going to pass out. And that is when I heard a voice. Not from the comms or anything, but actually inside my head. I think I imagined it, but it spoke to me. It was speaking to me and telling me that I should stay, that it misses me, that I should take off my helmet and just be free. And the thing is, I knew what this voice was saying was wrong, but I listened. I had this sense of euphoria when it spoke, like it was the most pleasant to listen to voice in the entire world, like I could not help but hang onto each and every single word and do exactly as it said. I was still bleeding at this point. I had another rip in the diving suit near my thigh, if I remember correctly. I don't know when that one happened. I never saw. Then the voice. It stopped making me feel euphoric. I was still somewhat resisting, but it started to make me feel panicked. The voice went from smooth and relaxing and comforting to really rough and scared, telling me that I was going to die, that the mixture I was breathing in, that it was killing me, that if I did not take off my helmet right that second, then I would never see my daughter ever again. All of a sudden, in that very moment, it all just clicked in my head. The voice that I was hearing inside my head, it was the voice of my wife, and that made it feel all the more real to me. I remember I just kind of went into autopilot mode, and I was moving my arms once again. I wasn't even controlling them, that I could tell. I wasn't making any conscious effort to move them, but I could feel them go towards my bicep. I was clawing at the diving suit and trying to rip off the fabric, but my hand kept slipping, and I could not get a proper grip. All I did was make a bigger hole, and then I felt both hands clasped near my helmet, gripping onto my umbilical cable. The voice kept urging me to do it, to get rid of the cable that was pumping poison into me, to take off my helmet and come back home, as the voice said. I remember that I was just mumbling to myself. I know this because the people on the comms confirmed it later on. They told me I just kept mumbling, "I'm coming home, honey," again and again and again, and that I would not respond to them whatsoever. I think I'm just lucky that commercial diving helmets are designed to stay locked into place and are almost impossible to rip off by yourself. Before I could even make any headway, I heard a voice start screaming at me. It was my supervisor down the comm line. He was screaming at me and asking me what I was doing. I could still hear that other voice in my head, my wife, side by side with the one that I was hearing on the comms. It was telling me to ignore him, that the people upstairs were evil, that they were trying to kill us all. My supervisor just kept shouting and shouting, and I could not pay attention to anything anymore. I took my hands away from my helmet, and they just drooped to my side. I still could not lift them up manually. I felt something. I felt a sudden ringing in my ears and a kind of a static shock feeling. I noticed that there was another cut in my diving suit, this time on the left thigh. I watched the tentacle slink away into the darkness. All I remember after that is my vision slowly going dark and feeling like I was drifting away into nothingness, into the dark void. I saw that thing bobbing up and down, further and further away from my light. The next thing that I remember is that I was in the diving bell. The standby diver had come and brought me back, and we were beginning the approach to the surface very slowly. We could not rush it, even if I was injured. At that depth, the risk of complications or death would be way, way too high. I don't want to go into the details after that, but it was a mess, to say the least. I remember that once we had made the full ascent, and I had decompressed after some time, I felt cold. I could feel the coldness in my actual bones. My cuts were stinging and were making my eyes water. I was fine, kind of, in a roundabout way. I explained my side of the story, and no one could really explain what happened. I probably should not have included each and every single thing that happened to me, but I did anyway. I couldn't think of a way to lie, and I don't know. I was laughed at and told it was just nitrogen narcosis or my mix or something. Despite being told that the entire time my gauges and my gas mix was fine. I pushed it and ended up being deemed a safety risk that I needed to take some time off and to recover. And I ended up never going back. Even my close buddies who I used to dive with for years would not believe me. They knew me really well. They knew I wouldn't just make something up like this. We'd seen all sorts of things down there that you would not believe, and even they called me crazy and thought that I just had a mental break. I don't really know how to explain what I saw down there, and I don't think I will ever be able to. Does anyone here have any answers for me? Like I said, I have not been so much as near a lake since then, never mind the ocean. I will never go diving ever again. This is a story that happened to me around the year 2000, and it is something that I will never forget. It all happened on a 2-week trip that I took with my family. It was wintertime, and we had gone to a house that belonged to my grandparents. The house was in the countryside. It was me, one of my cousins, my parents, an aunt, and an uncle. It was not a big house, but the area around it was huge. It was a house in the middle of the woods, and there was nothing to do there because of the isolation. The city was pretty far away, and there were no houses nearby. The only thing that we had was a swimming pool, and there was no television. The water was always freezing though. We mostly passed the time with the soccer ball that we had. My cousin and I were always really creative. Whenever we weren't playing with the ball, we were making up stories. Naturally, being kids, it did not take long for the ghost stories to start. We spent a long time seeing who would get more frightened. This wore off after a while, and nothing seemed to scare us. Halfway through the trip, the adults were sick and tired of staying there all the time too. They decided that they wanted to go out into the city. My cousin and I did not want to do tourist shit, so we stayed in the house. We were 15 and 14 years old by now, and so they did not even think twice about leaving us alone. They decided that we could fend for ourselves. When night fell, they left, and we stayed there, just playing cards. Time went by and the temperature dropped. A strong mist started to settle in the area. However, the fog was so intense that you could not see anything more than 20 yards away from the house. I made a comment about the fog. I was like, yeah, it's in a mist, like that where the devil appears. Soon, my cousin forgot all about the cards and went to the window and began to nag at me. He actually dared me to go outside into the fog. I was like, no way I'm going outside in this cold. The conversation was more or less just this for the next half an hour. Him daring me and me coming up with a way to refuse. Until he said, dude, I think I saw something out there. I did not even look at him, but he insisted. Dude, seriously, I saw something out there. Dude, fuck off. You've been making this up for about 4 straight days. Why do you think I would believe it now? Then I looked into his face, and he looked actually seriously confused. I asked what the hell that face was for. I'm serious, man. I saw something out there. Then I started to get that feeling that it was more serious than it looked. My first reaction was to run through the house and lock all of the doors and the windows. When I locked the kitchen door, he yelled out of the room, saying that he had seen it again. I ran upstairs and went to the window to see if I could see anything too. My cousin was scared and explained that he had already seen something out there 4 times. He was pointing out where he had seen it, but there was not much to see in the fog, and the only light outside the balcony was not working. We stared at the windows of the house for another 10 minutes without seeing anything else. Suddenly, he screams at me, and I rush off to see what it was. I find him desperately pointing outside. There, I'm seeing it right now, look, right there. I look at what he was pointing at, and there is a ball. You idiot, that's our soccer ball. I know it's the fucking ball, but it was not there. It rolled over there out of the fog. Then I started to think what it could be, and I thought that we needed to calm down and just think rationally for a bit. I told him, look, it was probably some animal. Dog, cat, wild pig, take your pick. It must have been playing with the ball. He stopped, and he thought for a bit. I don't really know if he believed it or if he just wanted to believe it. Yeah, you're right. It must be some dog. As we both accepted my makeshift explanation, we calmed down a little bit and started making fun of each other. We started joking, saying, "It's the devil that is out there. It will catch you. It's the creature that will pull your foot tonight." And with that, we calmed down a lot, actually. That's when I thought about the ball. I think we should go and get the ball. If it's a dog, it's only probably going to disappear with it, and then we'll have nothing to do. He was like, "Yeah, it's one of the only things that we have to do here, so we will be bored if we don't get it." He looked at me with a smile that went from ear to ear and said that I should go and get it then. I kept looking back and forth between him and the ball. I looked out the window and I couldn't see anything, so I said, "Fine, I'll go. You can sit your ass there and keep whimpering from the window." I opened up the door and I left. I walked up to the ball while looking left and right frantically. In that moment, I felt a cold creep up my spine. I got to the ball, picked it up, and when I turned back towards the house, I heard some kind of a hissing sound. When I looked in the direction of the noise, I saw something that seemed to be down on all fours. I thought it was a stupid cat or a dog, and I just cursed it out. When I was about to turn around to leave, it stood on the two rear paws and looked at me directly. I then realized it was way, way bigger than a cat. It was almost the size of a person. It bowed a little, as if it was going to jump on me, and it made a strange sound. I threw the ball with everything I had at this thing, and I ran as fast as I could back into the house. As I was halfway there, I started to hear it running behind me. From what I could make out from the sound, it seemed like there were two more of these things coming from the sides of me too. I went running into the house without even looking back, and I slammed the door shut behind me. Suddenly, I heard 3 loud bangs on the door as if something had smacked it hard. I locked the door and went into the other corner of the room. I looked at my cousin and asked what the fuck just banged on the door. He told me that all he saw was me jumping inside and that he did not get a good look. He looked outside the window, screamed, and jumped away from the window. As he did so, we ran into the bedroom, locked the door, and stood away from the windows, which were already closed. I did not take the time to stop and try and look at what he saw. He asked me what that thing was. I looked at his face and I could not even speak. The rest of the night we were just quiet. We kept hearing weird noises outside, like grave dog whimpers. He did not say anything else, nor did I. When the adults came home, we were still awake. The next day, we did not say anything to them. When I went outside the other day, I saw the withered ball on the other side of the house. When I got it, it was all torn up, and it stunk really badly. It smelled like the flesh of a dead animal. I showed the ball to my cousin. He asked what happened to me out there the night before, and I told him. So I asked what he saw in the window after I walked in. He said that he saw 2 things in front of the door. They were bipedal and had these pale, messed up faces. The third one was already turning the corner of the house, going to the side. Of those who had stayed in front of the door, one was trying to push the door, and the other looked at him from the window and bared its teeth. He said that its eyes were like black slimy balls in its face. They were all crooked, and they looked rotten. That thing looked like a small man, but with a slightly disproportionate head to the body. The head was a little bit larger, and it was brown apparently. After he saw them, he yelled and jumped back from the window. We did not talk to anyone about what happened, because we knew that no one would ever believe us. The ball, I threw it in the woods later, and I never saw it again. The rest of the trip, we did not get too far away from our parents, and whenever it was getting dark, we went straight back inside. After we left, I never wanted to go back there. The other nights we did not see anything outside. To this day, I have no idea what that thing was. Okay, so first, I want to give a little bit of context. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Let's call him Paul. Also, it's not a paranormal story in the strictest sense of the word. but rather a Lynchian story, with strange things that leave you with a feeling of unease, and a sense of a glitch in the reality or the Matrix or what the fuck, rather than ghosts and etc. Alright, here we go. This happened many years ago. I was a film student in Santiago, Chile. I was hanging out at my friend Paul's house near campus. We were surfing the weird side of the web, clicking on random sketchy links, etc. The atmosphere gets heavy, that weird impending doom feeling. Paul stares at the screen and goes, "Anon, this reminds me of something that happened years ago." He tells me the most reality-breaking story I've ever heard. This is now from Paul's perspective, 17 years old. I was vacationing in the Central Coast. I was partying late with my friends. It was 11 p.m. It was pitch black outside. Public transport in rural Chile is non-existent after 10 p.m. Paul's dad picks them up in his truck and then drops everyone off. Finally, it's just Paul and his dad driving through a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. It's a freezing cold coastal night with layers of jackets on. Paul's dad hits the brakes. He shouts, "Paul, look ahead." A woman is walking slowly in the middle of the dirt road. She is dressed in full mourning attire, black hat with a black veil covering her face. She has this long black dress on that she is dragging through the dust and the dirt. There are no cars around for miles. There are no taxis or houses nearby. Paul and his dad are too nice and they decide to help her. She gets in the back seat. She looks catatonic. She looks really out of it. Like, not even drunk, more so than drunk. She says that she is going to the hotel. They drive for a while. She doesn't really give them any details or any directions. She's just staring blankly into the void. Paul checks Google Maps. There are 0 hotels in this tiny town. The closest hotel is in the next town, 45 minutes away. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? There were no freaking hotels in the area. They drive her there. Paul's dad tries to strike up a conversation with her to check if she is okay. She gives a name and a very rare last name, not Chilean at all. She has the same surname as a famous Argentine book editor. She doesn't confirm if they're related. There's just silence. They finally reach the hotel. Paul helps her inside. She walks in like a zombie and sits on a giant sofa in the lobby. She does not talk to any staff. She doesn't check in. She just kinda sits there in a trance. Paul asks the receptionist for a reservation under her surname. The receptionist responds saying, "Nothing here, kid. Never even heard of her." Paul's dad says that they have done enough. They leave her there, sitting in the dark lobby. 2 weeks later, Paul is back in Santiago. Paul's dad calls Paul into his office, face as white as a sheet. He tells him to look at the screen. There is a missing person report from Halifax, Canada. There's a woman that's been missing for weeks. She needs meds for psychosis. She has an Argentine accent. Their faces drop and they freak out when they realize it is her. It's the same face and the same name. But also, Halifax is 9,000 kilometers away, and she is walking through the Chilean dirt in a veil. Fast forward to the present day. We look up the old news again. The update says that she was found safe and sound, but the link is dead. The domain is for sale. We find her new name on IMDb as an art director for an indie film. The director is from Halifax. We messaged him, but we got no reply. To this day, I wonder how she crossed the planet in a trance just to sit in a lobby in the middle of nowhere. I still get goosebumps and a strange feeling remembering the missing person photo. This happened to me when I was a little kid. This is exactly how I remember it. So at the time, I was just playing in the basement with my toys. The basement is completely unfinished and has concrete floors and exposed wooden beams with no drywall, but it does have a little bit of furniture down there. As a kid, I find it kinda creepy, but it is in the middle of the day, so it's all fine. I remember kneeling on the couch and guiding my Matchbox cars along the back of it when suddenly I blinked, and it was all of a sudden just nighttime, and the room was basically pitch black. Somehow, inexplicably, I had instantly fallen asleep in the middle of playing, and then woken up hours later in the blink of an eye, still kneeling in that exact same position. I immediately jumped up, completely terrified and confused. I was in the creepiest place in the house, at the worst time with no lights on, and no idea where my parents are. I leap off the couch and sprint to the stairs and just haul ass to get to my room on the second floor. This is where things get really blurry and hard to describe. I think what happened in reality is that I somehow fell asleep again while running up the stairs and dreamt what followed, but what I actually experienced was transforming into a non-human or an animal of some kind and hallucinating indescribable, bizarre things. Time seems to move both extremely slowly, yet passed by almost instantly as I blinked again, and I was in the upstairs hallway, running to my room. I jump into my bed and hide under the covers, with my heart beating like crazy. I just laid there, wide awake, trying to make sense of what just happened. 30 years later, and I'm still not really sure, and nothing like it ever happened again. I had 2 separate time skips, one where it wasn't even possible for me to fall asleep. What really gets me as an adult is, where the hell were my parents? Did they not see me kneeling on the couch for hours? They apparently just shut all of the lights off and went to bed, without even checking to see what I was doing all day long. It just strikes me as really weird. I don't know.